that okay, Louisa?
Yes, we're starting to record the session now.
Okay. Welcome to the State Bar's annual event, which is Welcome to Your State Bar. I'm Leah Wilson, the Executive Director of the State Bar. I'm really appreciative to all of you for taking time out to join us today. I hope you find this session to be informative. We have a nice mix of information sharing with you about some things happening at the State Bar and with the legal profession that we think will be of interest to you, as well as providing you with some really specific information about the admissions process, which I know is what many of you are here for today. So you will have an opportunity to ask questions at the end. I encourage you to try to keep your questions general to the extent that you have specific issues that you want addressed. We'll provide you with some information to do that. And before I go any further, I do want to introduce myself. I'm Leah Wilson, the Executive Director of the State Bar of California. You'll be hearing from a number of folks on the State Bar team this morning. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Louisa, who will walk you through some of the nuts and bolts of today's event. Louisa?
Yes, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Just a quick update, this presentation will have some interactive elements via an app called Pigeonhole Live. You'll be answering questions through your phone, so please have that handy. There is also a link in the Q&A if you feel more comfortable participating with your phone. And as Leah Wilson mentioned, there is going to be a Q&A session at noon. If you have a question that comes up before then, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And again, we ask that you keep your questions general. Thank you.
I see a comment in the chat about the sound. Can anyone chat back? Are you still having sound issues? Okay, we'll continue and let us know if you have sound issues. All right, so go ahead. Let's put up the word cloud. One of the things that you were asked to do when you registered for this event was to answer a quick survey about why you wanted to become a lawyer. I'd love to go ahead and share those results now. All right, so I think about 100 of you responded, and you can see here the key themes that emerge, those in the biggest letters, and the biggest letters of all is this reason to help people. And this really struck me when I was reviewing the responses, because I think we are one of the only professions where you will see this consistently as a theme as to why people choose to become lawyers. I know for myself personally, if I had been asked this question, this is the answer I would have given, along with something more detailed, like bringing justice to marginalized populations, which you also see coming up here in large font. And this is really important, I think, one, to understand why all of you are seeking to join the profession, but two, to see that there is a common thread, I think, among many of you, that you're doing this for a reason bigger than yourself. And it's important for us at the State Bar to understand that and to support that. And I hope that you will see through some of the work that we're engaged in that we'll talk about today, that we are certainly trying to do our part to help support the profession broadly, but also to maximize your impact on the 40 million Californians that all of you will be serving. I am going to go back a couple of slides now and just kind of start off with a general overview of the bar. Actually go forward. All right. So the State Bar of California's mission is to protect the public. And it includes kind of these three core prongs that we talk about: regulation and discipline of lawyers, advancement of the ethical and competent practice of law, and support for greater access to and inclusion in the legal system. We are, in fact, the only state bar in the United States that has, as part of our statutory mission, a requirement that we work to increase access to legal services for those who cannot afford attorneys, and that we work to increase diversity, equity, and inclusion in the legal profession. This makes us very unique. What we do that all state bars do is we do admission and we do discipline. That's okay, Louisa. So what we're going to start off with this morning is give you a little bit of an overview of the profession that you are about to join. The demographics, what does it look like? Where are people working? And so with that, I'm going to turn things over to Carolina, who will walk us briefly through some of the demographics of the profession.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Carolina Amarante. I'm an analyst with the Office of Research and Statistics. So one of the key areas of research produced by the State Bar is the analysis on the California licensed attorney population. And the State Bar administers an annual attorney census to gather data on attorneys, including demographic information such as race, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, and veteran status, as well as employment data. And the goal of collecting this data is to really understand the experience of attorneys across demographic groups, understand the population. We also inform the State Bar's diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. And annually, we issue out data, one including a 22 diversity report card that you can see on the website. So again, this is just a high-level preview and snapshot of the attorney population. So let's jump on this. So what are we seeing here? We're seeing let's go back. So what do we see here? We see the California attorney population compared to the California attorney population. Okay, so this top part, the California state population, we see that 39% are white and 61% are people of color. And so how does that compare to the California attorney population? 66% are white and 34% are attorneys of color. And why do we make this comparison? Again, as part of the DEI efforts of the State Bar seeks to achieve a statewide attorney population that reflects the rich demographics of the state population. So we're looking at the statewide attorney population compared to the California population. And while we're not there yet, looking at this data helps us move the needle a little bit closer. Now, let's jump then into more of this race ethnicity data, and we can go to the next slide. So again, we're taking a closer look at the California attorney population to see how the disparities varies across racial ethnic groups and gender identity. So again, we're looking at the California adult population compared to the California state population. So what do we see here? So on the left-hand side, we have gender identity, and then on the right-hand side, we have data on race ethnicity. So let's hone in on the race ethnicity data. You'll see the race and ethnic categories listed to your right: white, Hispanic, Latino, Asian, Black, African American, American Indian, Alaska Native, Native Hawaiian, other Pacific Islander, Middle Eastern, Northern African, and multiracial. And what we're comparing, the top blue bar is California adult population, and the California attorney population is the green bar. And one key thing that you'll notice is, again, a majority of California attorneys are white. And you also see that for Hispanic Latinos, there's the biggest disparity gap, where 36% are in the California adult population, but only 6% in the California attorney population. And you see these disparities throughout all the other racial ethnic groups that are listed here. Similarly, if you look at the gender identity data to your left, you have these two pie charts. So you have the California adult population, where 51% are women and 49% are men. When you look at the California attorney population, you see 44% are women to 55% are men. So the difference, you see the differences there are not as large, but there are disparities. And we also include information on non-binary attorneys, which is 1% of the attorney population. But currently we don't have that information at the US Census level. So the key takeaway here is that with this data, we're able to understand where are there disparities in both race, ethnicity, and gender identity. So if we move to the next slide. So we have information on the current population, but what do we know about our newly admitted attorneys, and how does it compare? So here we're looking at the increasing diversity among newly admitted attorneys. And I really like this chart because it shows the changes in the composition of newly admitted attorneys over time. So what do you see here? You see the chart reflects data from 1970 to 2021. And here the key takeaway is that you're seeing that women and people of color are increasing over time. And where women and people of color comprise of 53 and 51% of newly attorneys in 2019. Next slide. Here we also are looking at attorney census data, and the key takeaway are that a majority of attorneys do work in the private sector. We have 39% in law firms, 22% in solo practitioners, 15% in corporate, and then the remainder in the public sector. Next slide. So another key source of research that the State Bar generates is on the Justice Gap Study. So this analysis is focused on looking at measuring the gap between Californians' civil legal needs and the resources available to meet those needs, and identify both the knowledge and service gap. So what does that mean? So in terms of service gap, we're looking at the current legal services available in California is unable to meet the legal needs of California. And then when you look at the knowledge gap, we're thinking about Californians were not able to seek or receive legal help because they were not aware that their problem had a legal resolution or uncertain to how to access legal help. And one thing that we learned, or a few things that we learned, is that the retention of attorneys working in legal aid organizations was challenging. Only 1 in 3 attorneys working at California legal aid organizations leave those positions within 2 years. We also surveyed California law school students to learn what influences law students toward and away from public interest careers. And so this was really interesting because we learned about public interest drift. And so this is the initial desire of law students to work in public interest, and then how that changed upon graduation. So what were the top 5 reasons that were cited for this public interest drift? 71% need to make more money than public interest jobs pay because of educational debt. 40% are not confident that federal loan forgiveness program will continue. 32% plan to pursue public interest jobs after paying off educational debt. 28% plan to pursue public interest jobs after working in the private sector, and 27% want or have to make more money than public interest jobs pay, but not because of educational debt. So I know that was a lot of information, but what we are interested in taking a poll to see how many of you plan to pursue a career in legal aid. And so I'm gonna ask Alfredo to pull together or show the QR code.
Yes. Thank you, Carolina. So this is going to be the first of a few interactions that we're going to have today at State Bar Day. So what I ask is that everyone have their phone handy, and if you don't have a phone right by you, thank you to the anonymous attendee that asked for the desktop link for Pigeonhole, but I'm going to start sharing my screen right now so that everyone can see. Here's a QR code that's going to get to our first question for the day. So if everyone can start scanning the QR code or start clicking the link, I'm going to leave this up for about 5 more seconds, and then we'll move into the results of the questions. Carolina?
I'll give you a few minutes to scan in. And again, the question that we're getting your insight on is how many of you plan to pursue a career in legal aid?
Just a quick note as I swap over. And can everyone see can everyone see my screen? We're going to be using Pigeonhole throughout, so please don't exit out of the web page in which you're using it. So now I'm going to move on to the results, so you can give it a quick look.
So this is really exciting, and we're still getting responses. So the 3 options: I plan to pursue a career in legal aid. I am not sure yet. I do not plan to pursue a career in legal aid. So it looks like a number of you are still not sure yet. So there's still some time to change your mind. And then we have 23 or so % plan to pursue a career in legal aid. That's great. And then 33% I do not plan to pursue a career in legal aid. Okay.
Great. All right, back to you, Louisa, to share.
So again, this is just a quick snapshot of the diversity in the legal profession, where attorneys work, and then some of the research that we're doing to better understand how we meet California's need for legal services. So we're going to shift over to the DEI seal, and this is where I would transition to Leah Wilson.
Hello. So thank you all for answering questions. And as Alfredo mentioned, we're going to have a few questions for you throughout the day. Eloisa, you could advance the slide. One of the reasons that we wanted to start off by showing you the data around the demographics of the profession is that the State Bar has adopted a goal of having an attorney population that reflects the rich diversity of the California population. And as you saw from the slides that Carolina went over, we are certainly getting there with our incoming classes of lawyers, but we have a long way to go to change the makeup of the profession itself. And we think it's important to have that representation because there are many studies that show that people have more trust and confidence in the system when those in power in those systems look like them or speak the languages that they do. And so this is important when you think about access to justice broadly, to have that representation. We have done a number of things to try to encourage and support diversity in the profession beyond just collecting data. And one of the most exciting and new initiatives that we have is a DEI leadership seal for legal employers. And there are 3 levels to this seal: bronze, silver, and gold. To achieve these various seal status levels, employers have to commit to and demonstrate taking a number of actions. These include collecting demographic data themselves as employers, adopting a DEI statement and strategic plan, surveying their employees on various inclusion issues and being transparent about the results, sharing those results with their employees, having a leadership level position and commitment to DEI. So there are a number of action steps that employers have to commit to. They've got to commit and demonstrate that they've done 5 to get the bronze and 9 to get the gold. I wanted to bring this up with you all today because depending on where you are in your law school career, you're either at the place where you're looking for summer placements or you're looking for your job after law school. I encourage you, when you're looking at firms as well as government employers and nonprofit employers, to take a look and see whether they've got that seal. Ask in your interviews, have you heard of the State Bar DEI Leadership Seal program? And are you making any of the commitments related to that effort? I think it's important for you all to be aware of your power as new folks going into the legal market, and that it is together with you that we can encourage the best behaviors from our employers. So with that, I'm going to transition to kind of another topic. We want to give you an update on the goings on of the Blue Ribbon Commission on the future of the bar exam. And with that, I will turn things over to Donna.
Thank you so much, Leah. Louisa, if you can advance the slide. So while the practice of law has changed, perhaps dramatically over the years, the methods that we employ for determining who is actually qualified to practice have not changed. There were a series of changes to the California bar exam in the 70s and 80s, but after 1987, the bar exam remained unchanged until 2017, when it transitioned simply from a 3-day bar exam to a 2-day bar exam, and the relative weightings of the different sections changed, but it was essentially the same exam. Several years ago, the State Bar began conducting studies to understand whether the bar exam as administered was an effective tool to assess whether candidates possess the minimum competence required of entry-level lawyers, and to analyze reasons for the declining pass rate. As part of that effort, or at least as sort of the end piece of that effort, in 2020, the Supreme Court and the State Bar established the Joint Blue Ribbon Commission on the future of the bar exam. The Blue Ribbon Commission was charged with exploring the best ways to license California attorneys going forward. And so they explored essentially these 3 topics that you see on the screen. The first critical piece was whether there should be an exam at all. Should a bar exam continue to be used as the path to licensure? And if so, should it be developed by California and testing California law, or should we be adopting the National Conference of Bar Examiners Next Gen exam? And for those of you who are familiar with the UBE, or the Uniform Bar Exam, the Next Gen is scheduled to come out in July 2026, and it is the future version of the Uniform Bar Exam. And what should be tested on this exam? The Blue Ribbon Commission has developed recommendations. It is actually meeting later this week after an extensive public comment period to take a look and see if it's going to make any changes to its recommendations before submitting them to the Supreme Court and to the State Bar Board of Trustees. But what the Blue Ribbon Commission determined was that, yes, a bar exam should remain part of the way that we test to determine if lawyers possess the minimum competence. And absolutely, yes, it needs to be more skills-based and less memorization-oriented. The Blue Ribbon Commission adopted recommendations from an earlier working group that the State Bar held, which looked at what topics, what the knowledge, skills, and abilities are that are required of entry-level lawyers. If the whole idea behind a bar exam is to test whether somebody is minimally competent and possesses the skills of an entry-level lawyer, well, it stands to reason that we need to know what an entry-level lawyer does, what they need to know. And so we conducted surveys, and we determined the knowledge, i.e. the subject matters, and the skills and abilities that are required of entry-level lawyers. And the Blue Ribbon Commission said we should adopt a bar exam that looks at those knowledge, skill, and ability areas, and that is absolutely focused more on skills and much less on memorization, which is what today's bar exam is. The Blue Ribbon Commission was also tasked to determine whether or not there should be, either in addition or in lieu of a bar exam alternative, a pathway to licensure that did not involve a traditional bar exam. And if so, what components would be included? Would there be a change to law school curriculum, a post-law school supervised practice program? What kinds of objective assessments would be involved in determining whether participants in this program possess the minimum competence of an entry-level attorney? Would there be exams, simulations, portfolio reviews, capstone projects, etc.? This was an area that was extremely controversial for the Blue Ribbon Commission. They heard from quite a number of states, looked at different supervised practice pathways, including the provisional licensure pathway that California enacted during the height of the pandemic. And ultimately, the commission was split largely down the middle and could neither make a recommendation to pursue an alternative pathway, nor did they adopt a recommendation not to pursue an alternative pathway. The other item that they did discuss at length had to do with those who are licensed in other states and whether or not it's time to reconsider California's approach. On this, they adopted a very high-level recommendation, and again, these recommendations will be considered later this week, but the high-level recommendation was, yes, it is time to reconsider California's approach to out-of-state attorneys, providing more avenues for out-of-state attorneys to become licensed California attorneys without having to sit for a bar exam, but they deferred to the Supreme Court in their recommendation, the number of years that a person would need to have practice in good standing in another jurisdiction, and other ways that they would need to demonstrate they were ethical and competent. I'm looking forward to the meeting of the Blue Ribbon Commission later this week. It's on the 26th. They are going to discuss the 867, or should I say the 1,417 comments that came from 867 commenters, looking at the recommendations that they made and potentially considering whether or not to change any of those recommendations. But at this point, to answer ahead of time some of the questions that we received, the recommendations are just that. The plan is that they will be considered by the State Bar Board of Trustees in May, and then they will go on to the Supreme Court, at which point the Supreme Court will provide direction to the State Bar. If the Supreme Court directs the development of an exam, the Blue Ribbon Commission did recommend that the State Bar work with subject matter experts in exam design and develop at that time what the exam would actually look like. What the Blue Ribbon Commission talked about were the knowledge, skills, and abilities, but not what they would look like. Whether there would, instead of multiple choice and performance tests and essays, there might be simulations, and there might be a game-based assessment. There are hosts of alternatives and different ways to test the bar exam knowledge, skills, and abilities that would be explored depending on the direction that we get from the California Supreme Court. With that, I think we are ready to turn to a subject that may be floating at the top of people's minds these days. I'm sure you're hearing a lot about it in law school because of the implications that it has on the legal profession, and that is ChatGPT. And I turn it over to our Deputy Chief of Programs, Bridget Grammy, to talk to you about that.
Thank you, Donna. So before we get started talking about this, I'm going to turn it to Alfredo, who's going to have some questions for you to answer again using Pigeonhole.
Yes, so everyone, if you still have Pigeonhole open on your phone, if you click the white arrow up on the top left, you should see an option to take you back, and there should be a section called ChatGPT in Law School. If not, what I'm going to do right now is share my screen. Oh, sorry. Yes, great. And here is the option to sign in again. I'm going to spend a little bit less time on this, about 3 or 4 seconds. All right, and then we're going to move into the questions. So Bridget, if you want to start reading off the questions, I can get the results going.
Sure. So our first question is, has ChatGPT or its ramifications been discussed in your law school classes? And so I just wanted to preview this next section. We're going to ask you 4 different questions. All of your responses are anonymous, so don't worry about what you might be saying. It's really just for points of discussion. Okay, so I see, wow, the vast majority of you have not had this discussion, and some of you don't know what ChatGPT is, which I'm glad to have this information. So very quickly, I'll tell you this, and then we'll move on to the next questions. ChatGPT is a new technology. It's been out for the last couple of months, I would say, and it really is kind of revolutionizing the way many things are done. But it's through this product called OpenAI, where you can type in a chat. Type in a prompt into the chat to say, and it just kind of automatically will produce whatever it is that you're asking. It can be an essay, it could be the response to a question that you might have gotten on a test, for example. It can be a lot of different things. And so it's really something that we need to be talking about, both from legal education and from legal practice, as we're going to be talking about it in a few minutes. Okay, well, let's move on to the next question. Have you been allowed to use ChatGPT in one of your classes for an exam? So it's interesting that a couple of you have been able to use that, 2% it looks like, or a little bit, maybe just under 3%, but most of you have not been able to use it. So we can talk about that too. The next one, on a scale of 1 to 5, how much do you agree with the statement? Law students should be allowed to use ChatGPT during law school. Okay, so the majority of you are looks like the votes are still coming in. It's a tight race between strongly disagree and that you don't know. Okay, and this last one here, how much do you agree with the statement that law students should be allowed to use ChatGPT during the bar exam? So similar responses here, kind of balanced between disagreeing and not knowing, with a few of you saying that you strongly agree that we should be able to use it during the bar exam. Still kind of balanced. So if you can put up the next slide, Louisa. These issues are really important, not only for legal education, but for the practice of law in general, as you think about the use of technology, artificial intelligence, and what does that mean for the future of the practice of law? We've seen many, just as the state bar, some things that are coming our way. We've seen new business models and products that, you know, kind of walk this line about using technology instead of lawyers, even to provide legal services. There's been a product that uses earbuds and AI technology, this GPT technology, to respond, to help you figure out how to respond to a judge in court. Like, you can hear, it hears what the court has to say, and then it will tell you how to respond. So what do we do with that kind of thing? Are some really important issues that we're tackling right now. Is that unauthorized practice of law? Should we be permitting this type of thing to happen for people who can't afford lawyers? These how can lawyers use these tools and still serve their clients as a way to help everybody? But how do we also ensure that it's not harming the public, or that the information that might be used is actually wrong? So there's a lot of big important questions that we're tackling right now and trying to figure out how to do with it. And as we talked about, what does that mean for law school and the bar exam? You know, this is an important issue as well, because it does, you know, if this technology is going to be out there, maybe we need to be thinking about how to incorporate that into our training, how to take advantage of this type of thing and help us use it even as a starting point. And then how do we refine it, use our own tools as humans to take on the nuances, to research and make sure that it's accurate, and use that for our clients in a much more efficient way. And some of you may have seen in the news that the ChatGPT actually passed the uniform bar exam, that they put the prompts in, and ChatGPT was actually able to pass the exam. So that in itself really poses a lot of questions for us, and things that we're still tackling right now. As far as the other important piece of it is, you know, as I mentioned, this can be tools for lawyers, but it can also be tools for consumers, and helping people who might not be able to afford a lawyer to get some more important information that they need in self-help centers, or being able to represent themselves. And again, it's just our role as the regulator is thinking about how do we make sure that people do have access to important information, and while also making sure that it's correct information and something that can help them and not harm them. So that's just a little preview of some of these important issues that are coming. And then next on our hot topics is our Director of Admissions, Audrey Ching, and she's going to talk about an admissions fee proposal that's out for public comment.
Thank you so much, Bridget. Hi, my name is Audrey Ching. I'm the Director of the Office of Admissions, and I want to give an overview of a fee increase proposal that's out for public comment right now. I think that might be the next slide. Thank you. So we're going to put in the Q&A a link to a site where you can get a lot more information about this fee increase proposal and how to submit your public comment. And if you don't save that link or see it, on the homepage, calbar.ca.gov, it's under What's New. One of the first links under there is a link through to read more background than I'm able to give today about the fee increase proposal. But briefly, fees that we assess in the Office of Admissions are supposed to fully cover the cost of services. Right now, that's not the case. There's a gap between our expenses, the cost for the services that we provide, and the fees that we are assessing. So the Office of Admissions has a structural deficit in our budget. You might ask, how did we get here? Well, some of the fees that we have not increased for decades, and fees for the most expensive programs, the bar exam, moral character determination, have not had any increases since 2016. When you click through to that website that I referred to, again, it'll be in the Q&A, and if you miss it, it's right on the home page. You'll see that we've broken out different areas and different fees proposed. So fees that would impact the law schools that we regulate, fees that would impact your law study, the price for your exams, moral character determination, and differential fees for attorneys and non-attorneys with our services in admissions. So when you look through all the fees, you can see that we have two options. Option one reflects a break-even approach. So the idea that we would charge what it costs to provide the services. And then option two, a more modest increase in different areas where the fee increases are proposed. So as this does impact you, I would love for you to take some time to read through everything proposed on that website, click through to make public comment. We're really interested in what you think. We want your feedback, and we would like to be able to aggregate all of your opinions as we move forward with this process to our Board of Trustees. And I know there'll probably be lots of comments and questions in the Q&A. I will be back here in a little bit to talk more through the admission services and resources, and hopefully getting through your Q&A questions in the meantime. I think I am tossing it back to Leah.
That's right. I just don't see the link in the chat. So staff, are you putting that in, or am I looking in the wrong place? Have you put the link into the fee increase proposal?
I believe Tinny is putting that in. I will follow up with her to make sure that that's there for folks.
Okay, let's make sure that happens. So we're going to segue now into talking a little bit about the resources here at the State Bar that are available to support you both in your journey to becoming an attorney, and then once you are an attorney, to help you succeed in that role. So we're going to start off with a presentation on our lawyer assistance program by Lita Abella. So I will turn it over to her.
Thank you so much, Leah. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lita Abella. I'm with the Lawyer Assistance Program. But before we get started, I want to ask a few icebreaker questions to find out who you are out there and how you respond to the stressors of law school. So I'm going to ask Alfredo to bring up the questions for me, please.
Of course. So everyone, again, you should now see the option. If you click the white arrow on the back, there should be a section called Lap Icebreakers. And now I'm going to move to sharing my screen. Again, here's a QR code. I'll leave it up for a few seconds. All right, and I will move into the questions now, Lita.
Wow. We have an overwhelming number of bar applicants. So either 3Ls, 4Ls, or law school graduates, or maybe somebody who graduated from law school a while ago and they are taking the bar, or could be an attorney who is from another jurisdiction. So this is great information to know. And how often do you feel overwhelmed at law school? Occasionally. Well, I am going to very briefly talk about some of the resources that are available to you. So Louisa, can you please pull up the slide for me? While Louisa's pulling up the slide, just wanted to let you know that the Lawyer Assistance Program, we cater to law students, state bar applicants, and attorneys, and that's active, inactive, and disbarred attorneys. And these are for participants who have issues with substance use and mental health issues. Go ahead with the next slide, please. Everything in our program is confidential unless it's waived by the participant or it's a mandated reporting by a healthcare professional. So that would be something if you said to a mental health professional that was a danger to yourself, danger to others, child abuse issues, or elder abuse issues. And the information in our program cannot be disclosed as part of a civil proceeding, a disciplinary proceeding, or public records request. Next slide, please. So you're entitled to 2 free individual counseling sessions with a career counselor. If you're having difficulty finding work, maybe the type of job that you're dealing with right now, maybe you're already working in a law firm and you want to deal with some other area of practice, we have counselors that are there for you. We also have, you're entitled to 2 free one-on-one counseling sessions with a local therapist who specializes in stress, relationship challenges, burnout, and grief, as far as our short-term counseling. And then as far as our longer-term counseling, you're entitled to a free orientation and assessment with one of our licensed clinicians who will come up with a treatment recovery plan for you. They'll find weekly group support sessions that you can attend. And those support sessions are only with law students, bar applicants, and attorneys. And your first 3 weekly group support sessions are free. Everything is online now since the pandemic. It's moved virtually, and that's been great. Everybody loves that. And our counselors are there, our clinicians are there to help our participants every step of the way to make sure they're filling out their paperwork timely, they're doing drug testing if that's applicable. We want to make sure that our participants graduate from and successfully complete the program. I have one more question to ask you. If I can ask Alfredo to put that up, please.
Yes, of course. So this question is going to be an icebreaker. So if everyone, if you click that back arrow again, you should be prompted to ask, or I guess to answer a question. All right, and now I'm going to move to the responses.
So what do you do to relieve stress and anxiety from the challenges of law school? Well, this is great. I am so excited to see that a lot of you exercise, you get outside, you get that vitamin D. Exercise is so extremely important. Having a self-care plan and wellness strategies are very important for your legal career. I provide a free presentation to law schools and student bar associations. I talk about identifying substance use and mental health issues, a self-care plan, and wellness strategies. There's more information on the State Bar website. So thank you very much for allowing me to present this to you. Next will be our program director, Eric Doherty, to provide an overview on some ethics resources that are available to you. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Lita. And hi, everyone. Again, my name is Erica Doherty. I am the Program Director for the Office of Professional Competence. And we wanted to provide you with an overview of some of the services that our office provides once you're admitted to the State Bar and you become a licensed attorney. So first, and perhaps our most important resource in the Office of Professional Competence is the Ethics Hotline. It's a hotline attorneys can call with an ethics question or with a fact-based scenario that concerns their professional responsibility obligations. You can either call the hotline directly and speak to a live person, or you can submit a request online through an inquiry form and a hotline staff member will call you back. The hotline listens to the facts that you provide and they will provide you with relevant authorities that may be able to help you with your ethics question. Oftentimes those are the rules of professional conduct, advisory ethics opinions, or applicable case law on point. The hotline cannot give you legal advice, but they can, and they can't tell you what to do, but they can help point you in the right direction. So you can review those resources they'll provide and hopefully you'll know how to proceed on that concern. We also offer numerous ethics related resources on our website. In the attorney section of the State Bar's website, there's a whole ethics section and there's a lot of information there. That includes the rules of professional conduct, which once you're licensed, you'll be required to follow, as well as the State Bar Act, which is certain statutory provisions that you're also required to follow. And these both govern your professional responsibility obligations when you become licensed. There are also advisory ethics opinions on distinct topics that are relevant to attorneys that are issued by the State Bar's Committee on Professional Responsibility and Conduct, known as COPRAC. There's the Client Trust Accounting Handbook, which provides guidance on how to properly handle client funds and funds you're holding for third parties pursuant to the rules. Spotlights on key rules of professional conduct. These are just really short 1 to 2 minute videos that give you a really good highlight of some of your duties, such as communication, what happens when you end in a representation of a client, and others. And there's just a lot of other information. There's resources, articles, and they're helpful to all attorneys, but especially those who are new to the practice of law. And then finally, we offer the New Attorney Training Program and other continuing legal education courses. So the New Attorney Training Program is a 10-hour set of courses that you'll be required to take within your first year as a licensee. And the other continuing education courses relate to your ongoing responsibility to continue to take education courses to stay up to date on changes to the law. And those you have to complete 25 hours of every 3 years. These will be accessible to you through your My State Bar profile once you become licensed, and they're through the learning management system, which is again, a link that you'll access through your My State Bar profile once you're licensed. So hopefully some of these resources will be helpful to you once you are licensed and become a new attorney, and look forward to perhaps talking to you on the ethics hotline. And for now, I want to hand it over to our inaugural public trust liaison, Enrique Zuniga. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Enrique Zuniga. I'm the first ever public trust liaison, and I'm very proud of that. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I've been working at the bar for over a decade. I started off answering the phone on the contact center. Then I was an investigator. Eventually I became an attorney, and now I'm a public trust liaison here to be the intermediary between the public and what the state bar can do for you. So with that, thank you, Louisa. One of the main purposes of my position is to educate the public of what the state bar can do for them. My main focuses are the Office of the Chief Trial Counsel, attorney complaints process, and also admissions. Just like you, I went through the admissions process when I became an attorney. So with that, if a member of the public is having difficulties with the attorney complaint process, or perhaps you're having an issue with your admissions process that you haven't been able to resolve through the resources of the bar, I would encourage you to submit a form, an inquiry form to me, so that we can start looking into, so I can start looking into your questions and see if I can be help and an intermediary between you and the state bar to get a resolution. My form is located on our landing page. If you go scroll all the way to the bottom, is under Contact the Public Trust Liaison. You could fill it out online and just submit and hit submit. Alternatively, if you don't have access to the internet and you really would like to get an inquiry to me, you can contact the contact center. You'll be speaking to a public trust representative who would be able to hopefully answer your question. In the event that they can't, they'll be able to assist you in filling out this form over the phone. Thank you. With that, I would like to hand it back to Leah to take us to the next section.
All right. And I don't want Enrique to be overwhelmed, but I really do encourage you to take advantage of this resource. I see going through the Q&A just now, a number of you articulating having issues with either getting responded to or some other concern that you have. And we do have this resource to facilitate that kind of communication and resolution of your issues. We are now going to turn to, I think, the section most of you have been waiting for. This is the overview of the various admissions related issues. In preparing for today's session, we looked at many of the questions that you all submitted in advance, and I know that you have a lot about admissions processes and the moral character determination process specifically. So look forward to turning things over now to Tara and David to lead staff in the moral character area, and they will get started on this very important topic. Tara and David, take it away.
Perfect. Thank you, Leah. And so to start off, we have a quick game regarding the admissions process called Two Truths and a Lie, and Alfredo will help us get that started.
Yes. So again, if everyone can just click on the back arrow, you should see an option that says admissions, 2 truths and a lie. And I'm going to share my screen real quick to pull up the QR code in case someone needs it. And I'm going to see how many folks we have. Oh, we got a good number of participants. All right. I'm going to wait for this number to stop increasing a little bit. Okay. All right. Tara, David, is all right if we get started?
Yes, please.
All right.
Okay, so you have 3 statements here. 2 of them are true and 1 is false. So go ahead and answer, and then we'll briefly review the answer before we jump into our presentation.
Waiting a little bit for the answers to trickle in. Oh, we have a nice little live counter up here. Okay. In the interest of time, Tara, is it all right if I reveal the answer?
Yes, please.
All right. Answer revealed.
All right, good job, everyone. So We always like to, when we present to law students, just give you the fair warning, please don't call yourself an attorney or a lawyer until you are actually admitted to practice law in California. We know some folks get a little bit excited and jump the gun and start putting that on their LinkedIn or opening up a website with their name and the law office of. So good job. And we will go into the presentation now. Thank you. Okay, so as you are hopefully aware, positive moral character determination is one of the requirements for admission to practice law in California, required by the Business and Professions Code and defined by the admissions rules. So you can see here that good moral character in California includes, but is not limited to, qualities of honesty, fairness, candor, trustworthiness, observance of fiduciary responsibility, respect for and obedience to law, and respect for the rights of others and the judicial process. So what does this all mean? Essentially, the moral character application is an in-depth background check. So you're going to provide a slew of information about your history. You can see here we ask about education, residence history, if you've had any scholastic discipline, convictions, things of that nature. And then, so once you do submit the application, our staff will go through it, and I'll talk about that in a moment. A positive determination is valid for 3 years, and my colleague David will reiterate this later. If for some reason you're not admitted before that positive determination expires, you can actually submit an extension application, and it's about half the cost, as well as it's much less intensive on the questions. You don't have to reiterate your whole history. You can just let us know what's happened since your last application. And then for those of you that are following along in moral character, we are updating our rules as well as the application. So please always take a look at what the current version is. If you haven't already, as long as you're registered as a student, with this Office of Admissions, you can actually log into the applicant portal. You can click the draft on the moral character application, then you can see the actual questions itself. And next slide, please.
Okay. Thank you, Tara. Hello, everybody. My name is David Lane. I am the attorney for the Moral Character Unit at the State Bar of California, and I'm going to point you towards some resources where you can get a lot more in-depth information about the moral character process, because we can't get too far into it today. But before I do, I just want to mention a couple of key concepts in the moral character process. Tara talked about a lot of the information. She had a list there of a lot of the information we collect. And then we are going to review all the information that you provide and eventually make a moral character determination. The first key to this process that will make it go much more smoothly and quickly for you is candor. And that refers, if you will, to giving us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. If we ask you for information, for example, maybe you had a DUI conviction, you're going to disclose that on your moral character application and provide us with a little narrative. Instead of saying, you know, in 2005, I was convicted of DUI, it's going to go a lot more quickly. There's going to be less back and forth if you provide us with details about the situation. What were you doing? Where did you go? How much did you drink? What was the interaction with the police officer like? What was the disposition of the case? Have you completed all the terms of probation? Things of that nature. So candor is crucial. The more you disclose to us up front, not only will the process go more quickly, it's also going to signal to us that you're taking the process seriously and that you are more likely to be the sort of person who has the requisite moral character to be admitted in California. The second concept I want to quickly mention is rehabilitation. There is no act of misconduct in California that per se, that is on its own, will automatically disqualify you from getting a positive moral character determination. The reason that's the case is because the concept of rehabilitation is really important. And in this context, what it refers to is basically a couple of things. One, a sufficient period of time has gone by since the applicant engaged in whatever the past misconduct was, whether it was criminal history, maybe an honor code conduct violation in school at some point, things of that nature. So you want time to go by where you don't reoffend. And then in addition to that, it often helps to have affirmative rehabilitative acts. Some people take some continuing legal education courses that are relevant to whatever the misconduct was in which they engaged. We've had people who have had very serious drug and alcohol problems that led to misconduct. And they've actually talked to, kids in high school and told them about their experience and how they can avoid getting into that sort of trouble. So rehabilitation is really important. If there's sufficient rehabilitation, even if you have issues in your past that raise concerns, you can still get a positive moral character determination. Okay, so on the slide here, these are a bunch of resources that will be helpful to you. You can either write down or remember that URL or just Google State Bar of California moral character. That'll get you to the Moral Character Unit's webpage. On that page, you'll see various links. One of them will be, as you can see on the slide, the moral character statement. That's basically going to give you a summary of what we do and why we do it in the Moral Character Unit. The governing law will cite to the Business and Professions Code requirement for a positive moral character determination, as well as the rules of the State Bar of California that are relevant to this process. There'll be some explanation there of the process of how to file the application and get through the process. On the right on the slide, factors and conduct relevant to a moral character determination. This will give you sort of a summary of what we look at, why we look at it, some of the mitigating and aggravating circumstances that might apply to issues of concern that come up in the application. Further investigation and informal conferences, that will explain, in some of the areas we look further into that come up on the application, and explain what an informal conference is. And in short, an informal conference is essentially an interview with a few of us where we sit down and we talk about issues that raise some concern that are in your application. Sometimes just seeing the stuff on paper isn't enough, and we find that having a discussion helps. The conferences are informal in the sense that they are not formal hearings. You're not testifying under oath. There are no witnesses. There are no rules of evidence. You're welcome to present hearsay evidence, tell us stuff that other people said, things of that nature. Colloquially, it's anything but informal, I know, to the applicant who has to come meet with us. But it is informal in the sense that it's not a formal legal hearing. And then this last one might be the most important, moral character determination guidelines. That is essentially an online pamphlet that will list various acts of misconduct that could come up that you might have in your background. And they'll come up in the moral character process. And it will give you a little more information about how we approach those issues, how we process them, how we deal with them in the moral character process, just to take a little of the mystery out of it and sort of give you some hints on how to get closer to a positive moral character determination, depending on what you have in your background. Next slide, please. So let's say you do get invited to an informal conference. And by the way, you will not receive a negative moral character determination without the opportunity to meet with us at an informal conference. We will invite you to one if there's a chance that you might be denied, or if we just think we need some further information. There are 4 things that can happen following an informal conference. The first, hopefully this is the one that happens. It's a positive determination. We approve your application. And when you fulfill the other requirements for licensure, you get sworn in and become an attorney. If that happens, the positive determination is good for 3 years. Maybe it takes you a little while to pass the bar exam. Maybe something comes up in your personal life that delays you getting sworn in as an attorney. Not a problem. You have 3 years during which the moral character determination will be good and valid. And as Tara mentioned, you can extend that period. You can submit an application to extend the 3 years so that you have longer to get licensed. Abeyance. Abeyance is essentially hitting the pause button. Abeyance happens when we have an informal conference. We think you may be able to receive a positive determination, but you might not quite be there. You might require a little more of the rehabilitation that I referred to earlier. So you'll sign a contract with us. We'll offer you to enter into a stipulation. We'll sign a contract. You agree to do certain terms. Might be anger management courses. We could have you go and talk to the folks over at the Lawyer Assistance Program that you heard about earlier. You might take some continuing legal education credits. Ethics School and Client Trust Account School are two roughly day-long courses that are taught by state bar attorneys. Ethics School, you learn about the rules of professional conduct. Client Trust Account School, you learn the various rules related to maintaining a client trust account where you're going to hold client funds when you become an attorney. The third option after an informal conference, we may, more information might come up during the conference that we have questions about. We could re-refer your application for further investigation by one of our investigators in the Moral Character Unit, or even ask the Office of Chief Trial Counsel at the State Bar to help us out. And then finally, you could receive a negative moral character determination. If that happens, don't panic. The process is not over. You don't need to write your legal career off. A standard denial is for 2 years, then you can come back, reapply, try again. And that's going to be 2 more years automatically of rehabilitation, assuming you don't engage in further misconduct. And so you're going to be that much closer to getting a positive determination. So even when your application's denied, it's not over. You can also, after staff, that is us, State Bar staff, if we deny your application, issue an adverse moral character determination, you can ask the Committee of Bar Examiners to do an entirely new administrative review, totally de novo, don't have to defer to our decision. They have the same options available that we had available. You can even present new information to the committee that we didn't even have the benefit of seeing. If they issue a negative determination, you can appeal their decision into State Bar Court, go through the 2 levels, the trial or hearing department, and then the appellate department, or as it's called, the review department. And then finally, if you get a negative determination in State Bar Court, you can petition for review in the California Supreme Court. I'm going to pass it back to Tara.
And so I just want to add, if you have taken a look at the moral character application in the applicant portal, if there's something you would like to provide to us, for example, David mentioned any rehabilitative activities you've engaged in, you can upload those to any of the file upload steps. They all link to the same place, and our staff will review it as part of your application. So thank you. And I will hand it back to Audrey Ching to discuss the admissions process further.
Thank you. Me again. I'm going to do an overview, and we're coming a little shorter on time, so I might speak more quickly than I normally do. So I'm going to talk about registering as a law student, talk about resources we have available for you, and talk about the exams in the Office of Admissions. Next slide. So registering as a law student, well, I think a lot of you've already, based on the kind of the Q&A I've been reading, a lot of you might have already done this. Register within the first 90 days of your law study. What's great about registering, and actually Tara alluded to it already, is that then you're in the applicant portal, you can preview applications, you can click through, you'll have everything in one place, you can update your contact information if maybe you don't use your law school email address anymore, and we have your primary contact. Make sure to add the State Bar email calbar.ca.gov to your safe list. We actually have some tips online on our website about how to safe list emails from us. There's also a way to use a forgot password link. If you can't remember your password for the applicant portal, you don't need to call, you can actually click through, and I'll show that on the next slide, I think. Aha, there it is. So this is the main page for your login to the applicant portal. You'll see there's a create an account. If you haven't yet created an account, you should do that today. And you can register as a law student. And then there's also forgot your password link. So again, you don't have to call and wait through the call center queue. You can click through to forgot your password. And just like a lot of other websites, you can reset your own password. Next slide. Well, why register now? Well, in the Business and Professions Code, you're actually required to register the first 90 days as a law student unless there's other circumstances. Also, it's just great to be part of the community, to be in the applicant portal, to have everything in one place, to get emails about different State Bar initiatives, We sent in a large email, many folks in the database already received an email about that fee increase proposal I was talking about earlier. And your MPRE score automatically posts to your portal once you are in the system. Next slide. So your resources and your responsibility. Again, all the applications we have in the office are on the portal. There's instructions on the admissions website, FAQs specific to our exams, FAQs about different applications, and kind of general FAQs. We've been adding more FAQs for you. The timelines for different applications are on the website. I looked at some of the preview questions you had when you were registering for this state bar day, and there's deadlines and timelines. I know there was a question about when does the February 24 exam open, and that will always, February exam always opens October 1st, and the July exam always opens March 1st. But if you don't remember that, they will be under deadlines on the website. You'll also be able to see what the minimum system requirements are for your computer for our different exams. That'll also be part of the applicant documents when you register for an exam. But yes, if you forget, they're in the admittance ticket bulletins and posted about those minimum system requirements for exams on the website. Next slide. There's lots of ways to reach the state bar. You can just, go through FAQs, go through information and links in our state bar rules to see if you might find answers to your questions that way. You can send a direct email to admissions@calbar.ca.gov. You can call a main number to get connected to the call center and our public trust liaisons. You can submit a general request through the applicant portal, and I'll show you that in 1 second. And you can also request to come in person to have an appointment with the state bar. Next slide. So this is the home page, and it might look a little different. Definitely it's a little different than a year ago when we had state bar day. So there is something I wanted to highlight now on the homepage of the applicant portal, which is you can look through definitions of application status. So if you don't know what verified versus submitted means, you can click on status definitions, you can read through and make sure that you know where your applicant is sort of in the process. So I just wanted to highlight that for you, that you can click through and read those definitions. Next slide. How to submit a general request. We've been referring to general requests or general inquiries. So across that top navigation, I've highlighted the word requests, and then you can see general request is right there. You click through, you ask questions. If you didn't get your question answered today, go ahead and click through and ask it through the general request as well. We endeavor to answer all those questions within 48 hours in the office. So hopefully those will get answered for you. Next slide. You can look through your applications in different ways, but what I've highlighted here, so again, there's a navigation bar, drafted, pending, approved, all, where you can kind of look at everything you've submitted and what status it's in. Has it been approved? Is it pending applicant, which means it's in your court? Is it pending internal, which means it's in our court? Have we closed your general request? Have we not? Is it still waiting for an answer? You can kind of look through the different statuses there in an easy way when you click on all. Next slide. Different exams at the state bar. So we have the first year law students exam, which is required primarily for students at the registered, California registered law schools, and you can have information about that exam. It's been delivered online for the several different examinations of the past. Since 2020, we've been doing that exam remotely. You can read on the website all the different rules for that exam, especially since we've been doing that exam remotely. You can look at the scaling and scoring for that exam and how it's graded. Something that came up in the chat was about resources, and I wanted to make sure everyone knows that you can read through for both of these exams, the bar exam and the first year exam. You can look at past exam questions and selected answers. So in your study, make sure you take some time to look through past exam questions and selected answers that are just all there available for you on our website. So of course we have the California bar exam administered twice a year. A lot of the questions I looked at before the webinar today, some of them were asking, oh, do you recommend a certain bar prep, and the State Bar doesn't recommend a certain bar prep program, but what I would say is that when you see registration open for the bar exam strategies and stories, that you really try to hop on that and see if you'd like to participate. That's a positive mindset intervention program. A lot of applicants have found it very helpful. You'll get information about it when you apply. Emails will be sent to you about how to register, and then you're kind of completing that program as you're studying for the exam. Make sure, again, there's a note there at the bottom saying that you make sure that your status of your applications are actually submitted. Don't leave them unverified. Sometimes an applicant might not realize their payment didn't go through and it's not submitted. So just make sure when you go back to the portal and looking at your status of your different applications that they are actually submitted, which means that we have it to review. Next slide. Okay, well, this is our general contacts. So everyone can take note. I know folks were asking about some of the contact, especially with the Public Trust Liaison, of how to get in contact, and that's a new program. So you can see there, we've got the email address and an inquiry form now for the Public Trust Liaison. The LAP contact, moral character, we have the moral character email, and of course the moral character person of the day, and then the general admissions contact, and of course also you can submit those general requests. Hopefully we've been able to answer a lot of the Q&A as we've been going along, and we're going to endeavor to keep doing that, but I'm going to hand it over to Principal Program Analyst Natalie Leonard to move us into the Q&A.
Hi, thanks, Audrey, and thanks to everyone who's been sending questions throughout the meeting. We received over 60 questions prior to the meeting, and we've probably received around 100. Oh, I can see 117 so far answered during the meeting, another 35 to go. So some of them are grouped in certain areas, and some of the presenters right now are in the Q&A chat and we'll be responding to people directly. Just for frame, if you have a specific question about your specific situation, we encourage you to use one of the resources that was identified today, or if you're not sure where to go, or if you don't remember, don't have the information handy, you can always send a question through your applicant portal, or alternatively to admissions@calbar.ca.gov, and we would be happy to address that. So we've bunched the questions that remain into a few areas, and because I've been answering while we talk, there might be a time or two when I raise a question that's already been answered, and if so, then we can then please forgive me, and we'll just move on to the next one. But the one question we received from outside was, I would like to know what happens on exam day. I would like to know the materials that are handed out on the test and how essays and MBE questions are answered. I am assuming essays are in a program and MBE questions will be on a screen or paper. And this is regarding the July exam this summer. There are a few questions about what will be happening this summer. I wonder if that's something that Audrey Ching could address.
Natalie, I was just answering a question on the release of results, which would be May 5th through the applicant portal at 6 p.m. So I'm so sorry, can you please repeat that other question to me?
Absolutely, yeah. The person is wondering this summer for the July bar exam, what they can expect at the bar exam. Will they be, for example, answering the essays on a computer or paper, depending on what they choose? And then how will they be answering the MBE portion?
Oh, yes. So primarily, although some applicants still request to handwrite the exam, the vast majority will answer the written portion of the exam through ExamSoft is the vendor for the laptop program. So you will put your essay and PT answers in the ExamSoft system for uploading to us there in person. And then the MBE, which is the multi-state bar exam, those multiple choice questions provided by the National Conference of Bar Examiners, those are actually answered on a Scantron on day 2. Also in person, everything's in person.
Okay, thanks. And then a few similar questions in this same general logistics area. Someone asked about the proposed professional responsibility changes and asked if they would be on the bar exam. There is a page on the bar exam on the admissions website that shows what will be covered on the bar exam. but the proposed topics are not covered, and you can see what will be covered on the bar exam. And Audrey, do you have anything to add?
No, it's all posted there about the rules, the California Rules of Professional Conduct and the ABA Model Rules of Professional Conduct will be covered on the bar exam.
Okay, and then someone is really planning ahead. They ask about when they can register for the February 2024 exam.
Oh, I think I answered that. I said we always have October 1 as the opening of February and March 1 as the opening of July.
Okay, good. The next questions were about grading, and someone asked about the reread band for bar exams. Many of you know that when you take the bar exam, the cut score is 1390. That is the passing scaled score, and any exams which are within 40 points of that are automatically given a second reread without you having to ask for that. So we just wanted to let people know. And similarly, some people asked about the scaling formula that the State Bar uses for the purpose of making sure that the difficulty level is equal between exams. That's probably without this outside the scope of this program in 11 minutes, but we do put information about that up on the State Bar's website, and we encourage you to check it out and also to ask any further questions that you might have. Okay. Many of the other questions, thank you so much for submitting them in advance, were addressed throughout the program. So I think that that's really good. We got quite a few very specific questions for moral character. In particular, one asked about the reapplication process. If they are going to reapply for moral character, exactly when they would go about doing that, and do they need a specific invitation to reapply, or how do they know when they can start again?
So for someone who's been denied a positive moral character determination, there's a reapplication date listed in the letter. That's the date on which they can start accessing the application in the applicant portal. If it's someone who's submitting an extension application after having a positive determination, they have 6 months prior to the expiration of that positive determination to submit the extension application.
Okay. Another one we got is, what if your reference that you would like to include does not speak English and speaks only a foreign language? Can that person be put forth as a recommender? And if so, do their remarks need to be translated?
This is a bit specific, but so generally we only contact references via a questionnaire. So if they're able to have someone assist them, yes, we do ask that the responses are in English. That will definitely help us, but you're able to put someone as long as they're able to answer the questions.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking through the questions that we are just getting right now to see if there are questions we can answer here in this forum. Let's see. I think this person is asking about ExamSoft during the bar exam, and can they use, is there autocorrect, or can they use spell check as part of their exam taking?
It's not autocorrect that's enabled through ExamSoft, but there is spell check and highlighting, I think.
Oh, here's a question we get a lot, actually. I just got married and I changed my name. How do I go about handling this in the applicant portal? And with that, you could begin by contacting the eligibility department, and they can take you through all those steps that you need and the documentation you need to process that. And congratulations. Let's see, what if you pass your moral character application, but it has lapsed while trying to take the exam? How do you go about renewing?
So if a positive determination has expired, then you do need to submit a new determination application rather than the extension.
Okay, thank you. This is a question from Audrey. Will there be COVID-19 precautions at future exams?
So the COVID-19 requirements that we were taking at different parts of the pandemic are not going to be required for the upcoming exam. An applicant can choose to wear a mask if they would like to. That might be subject to inspection, but some of the extreme precautions that we were taking earlier when different county and state and federal guidelines for COVID-19 were in effect, and those are no longer in effect. We're not going to be doing all of the different steps for COVID-19 that we were doing in prior exams, but if you would like to wear a mask, you can wear a mask. If you'd like to know more, you can write in and we can talk through more. And if you have a certain concern about your specific situation and you might want to write in to see if you might need to apply for testing accommodations, please send in a general request.
Okay, thank you. And then here's a general request that we often get a lot. They ask, are exam takers allowed to use highlighters? And we would encourage you, sometimes what's allowed in different parts of the exam is different depending on the section. So we would encourage you to check the admissions bulletin. And Audrey, I'm not sure if there was any other tip you might share on that topic.
I'd read through what is in isn't allowed on the different days carefully, because the MBE portion, again, it's controlled by the National Conference of Bar Examiners, and some of what they allow is a little bit different on day 2 than day 1, but that's all posted for you on the website, and you can read through that in plenty of time. We also send weekly emails to all the applicants for the exam for the 5 weeks leading up to the exam, so we will highlight what you can and cannot bring.
Okay, great. And then we also received a lot of questions just as a group about people who've been educated outside the United States and how do they go about pursuing licensure. So as we've been going, I've been sending them the link to the page on our website regarding foreign education. And one of the first steps is to determine whether you're already licensed in the US or another jurisdiction. And then from there, you can determine the steps that are appropriate. And for that, we would encourage you to contact our eligibility team if you have any questions after reading through that material, so that you can get the facts that fit your particular situation as you pursue licensure. I would say that we got quite a few questions in that area. Thank you for your patience while I'm going through the list. We have generally covered most of the questions that relate to the topics today, so we have time to take a few live questions. And I see about 5 hands. And that's probably, oh, we're at 12, oh, we see many more. We can probably take, we're at 12:26, we can probably take about maybe 3 questions.
Okay, we can start with the first person who has their hand raised, Caroline Smith Brown. Caroline, you should be able to ask your question now. I see that you are still on mute. You'll need to unmute. Okay, ask to unmute. Give it a couple of seconds and then we'll move on to the next person. Next person is Sem Dolar. Sem Dolar, you have your mic enabled. You should be able to ask your question. Okay, that didn't work as well. I believe Sem Dolar does not want to ask a question anymore. We've got Chris Streeters. Chris, you should be able to ask your question.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. So I'm a bar applicant currently studying for the California State Bar, and a couple of weeks ago I inserted into ChatGPT list California state bars where specific intent crimes were at issue. And ChatGPT responded with something like, California has not released this information available for ChatGPT to use. So my question is, do you know when or if California State Bar will allow bar applicants to use ChatGPT for the studies, specifically pertaining to past bar exams?
I guess I'm not sure Sorry, Chris, I'm not sure. See, the answer ChatGPT gave was that the state bar had not allowed the use.
Correct. Seemingly, they won't allow GPT to access that information over past bar exams.
Well, we
where-
post the prior bar exam questions and selected answers on our website. So I guess
Correct. Correct. I'm trying to zero in on targeted issues, for instance, specific intent crimes. So I want ChatGPT to go through all California state bars, let's say for the last 30 years for specific intent crimes. And California State Bar will not allow access to the bar exams, even though it's publicly, I think it's public domain, but regardless, it won't allow access to pinpoint those issues and bring them out. For instance, if I say into ChatGPT, list the issue on point where Crawford v. Washington, something that it'll tell me because it's Google information, but
I see what you're saying. Drilling down to our specific questions over time. Okay, I might have to take that offline with you, Chris, because I am not sure.
And
Okay.
I'm just going to jump in and posit that it might be our web IT security web scraping protections that are not allowing ChatGPT to grab the information. I wasn't aware, so I appreciate the question. You can imagine there's obvious reasons why we try to prevent web scraping, but it's an interesting use case for ChatGPT that I thank you for bringing to our attention. I think maybe one more question and then we should wrap up.
Sure. Next, we have Grace Omotosho. Grace, you should be able to ask your question now. Grace, you'll need to unmute to ask your question. I see that you are still muted. Okay, we'll move to Philip Gregory Conlon. Philip, you have the mic. You should be able to ask your question.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm not sure that the question is relevant to this meeting as much as the Blue Ribbon Committee later in the week, but I don't understand why California chooses to have a multiple choice score 20% higher than most other states to pass.
Yeah, I think that's an issue, sort of the California passing score that's been studied quite extensively in the last few years, most recently resulting in a reduction in the required passing score. That issue is not actually being specifically taken up by the Blue Ribbon Commission, the passing score. The commission is recommending, as Donna mentioned, the creation of a new California exam. And with that would come a cut score study to determine the appropriate passing line for that new exam. And that's the time, I think, when we'll kind of revisit the entirety of our scoring. But I would say you're not alone in continuing to kind of question our requirements on the passing score. Just as a reminder, the Supreme Court, not the state bar, assess that passing score here in California. And I think, Natalie, with that, we will wrap up. There are a number of questions in the chat. We did, or in the Q&A, did our best to respond to them. I'm hopeful, staff team, that we can access these questions so that to the extent possible, we can do a written Q&A or FAQ in response to these questions. So nobody's telling me no, so hopefully we can download these questions and try to get them answered for you in another way. I thank you all for participating. Hopefully you found this interesting and useful. I also appreciate your giving us a little bit of insight by answering the questions posed to you by Pigeonhole, and thanks for trying out that new tool with us. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, and I look forward to officially welcoming you to the State Bar. Thank you.
And just one final note for anybody who is interested, we will be following up with flyers and resources and a copy of this presentation. We'll also be circulating a quick survey that we really appreciate your time in responding to. That should be coming your way sometime this week. Thank you so much.